This afternoon I'm with Emma from Amari Marketing. You are a
Hello.
marketing agency, is that right?
Yes, we do. We do marketing in service of sales, so it's very much about integrating the two together.
Right. What I wanted to chat about today is I wanted, first of all, to inspire other people if they wanted to go
That's
into
good.
business, chat
Yeah.
about how you started and what you did,
Okay.
and, and also how to help businesses at the moment, small businesses, sort of get through things. So tell me your story. How did you start Amari?
How did I start Amari? By accident is the honest answer to that. So I was working in a small, medium-sized enterprise. Been working there for about 6 months, and it just wasn't working out, I think it's fair to say. And so we agreed it wasn't working out, and I left. Just the personalities and the culture wasn't quite right for me, I don't think. And then I got home. I was panicking because we'd just spent all of our savings on my wedding, which was 2 weeks away. So we had rent to pay and needed to think about that. And so got home, had a chat with my husband, ate a lot of ice cream, and then I basically made a list of people that I'd spoken to over like the last year, maybe year and a half, that had said, if you ever go freelance or if you ever need a job, like let us know, sort of thing. So the next day, I went into Southampton. I bought myself a MacBook with the last of my savings. Got home, rang 15 people, emailed them, and then I got 12 responses, and Amari started the next day. I had my first client. So it was a bit of a weird one, really. It wasn't by any, as I said, it was definitely not by design. I wasn't planning it. It was just necessity. So
So would you say, a lot of people, me for one, I went down the road of going to classes and learning how to do business plans and sort of trying my best to plan through. Both methods are good, aren't they? Obviously you got clients straight away, so
yeah, but I think I was quite lucky. I had a good reputation behind me. I've always done a lot of networking, both face to face and on digital, and like LinkedIn and stuff like that. So I was quite I've always had quite good relationships with people, and to be honest, I knew how to do marketing, so it was kind of, I was halfway there already, really. And I'd run I had experience running a 6.5 million pound category for BP, so I'd already kind of run a business on BP's paycheck, so I'd sort of got the basics already. Really, and I understood. I'd done quite a lot of work in strategic transformation for Castrol at the European and Africa level. So again, in terms of sort of sales and marketing processes, I'd already had that groundwork. I'd already laid that foundation. And I think if I hadn't had any of those experiences, then Amari would not still be going today. So I think having a plan and working out what you're good at and what you're not good at is really important. Really, really important. Especially when you're starting out, because you are just doing everything, aren't you? You're sort of, you're the CFO, the CEO, the COO, you're the marketing person, the sales person, the admin person. But I think, Amari I always say Amari started before I did, in the fact that I always felt like I was catching up, trying to work in and on the business. And so sometimes, it's only really been this last year actually that I've taken the time to sort of sit down and put a business plan together and think about what the next 5 years looks like. And the little one-pager canvas as well, which I love. Got that from Hampshire Chamber of Solutions. Brilliant little tidbit there. And actually I think that's made me a lot more focused and probably made me a lot more efficient. So I think I've definitely wasted an awful lot of time and money over the last 2 years, 3 years, which if I had done that planning a bit earlier, I probably wouldn't have done.
Yeah. So what would you say, as a new business sort of starting out, so maybe in their first year,
Yeah.
because some have a little bit of marketing money budget,
Mm-hmm.
or some have none.
Yeah.
What would you say are the key points they should either spend their money on or invest their time in?
Okay. So the first thing I always say to people is, like, it's amazing what value you can get from your relationships. It's called social capital, and not a lot of people measure it or manage it effectively, and therefore they don't leverage it. And as a startup, it's like the only thing you've got. So what I always tell people to do is write down, if someone waved a magic wand and gave you enough money to start a business, whatever that means for you, what would you actually do with that money? So for me, when I sat down and did this exercise, it was, I wanted a desk. I wanted to be, I didn't want to be working from my kitchen table. I knew that wasn't going to work for me. So having a desk was quite important. I wanted a whole range of things, and it was then I wrote them all down and then worked out who in my network could really help me with those things. So I wanted to make sure I was going to really high level networking events, people that had money to spend on marketing and wanted to do that. So again, it was having that access into those things and getting those recommendations from people was really important. And I think that intelligence around, when I started, there were 793 marketing agencies in Hampshire. That were recorded in the chamber of, that was just a quick directory search. And I wasn't one of them. And I knew a lot of people like me that weren't either. So it was really competitive. So like, how are you going to stand out in that crowd? So going again out into my network and sort of getting that intelligence was really important. Like what did they need that people weren't providing, that I could sort of bring to the party, if you like, that would make us stand out. So that's definitely where I'd start, is write down a list of what you actually need, and then think about people in your network, and think about, the relationship that you have with that person, and whether, if they came to you, whether you would be all right giving, what they would do, what you would do for them. And you'd be amazed at how generous people are when you're starting out. I joined 2 networking groups for free. I just exchanged skills, and that's another great thing, is exchanging skill sets is really important when you're starting out as a startup. So I wasn't very good at invoicing and expenses, so I gave an accountant some marketing help, and she helped me with my books for my first year and things like that. If you've got, the other thing I would say is a lot of people end up spending way too much time on social media, because they're like, I've got to be all over social and doing all the stuff. And the problem with that is you spread yourself too thinly, because obviously you've got to manage all of those communities, respond to messages, notifications and stuff. So for me, it was about going out to the kind of people I wanted to work with and saying, where do you go for information? Because that's where I need to be. And so for me, I just focused on LinkedIn in that first sort of year and a half. And I didn't use any other social media at all. And still don't. Like, my Instagram feed is very poor. I don't have I think I have a Facebook page that just puts out our testimonials, but there's nothing really there. There's no channel plan. There's no strategy for those channels. It's just all about LinkedIn for me. So yes, those are the 2 things I would say. And then in terms of budget, like, I didn't have a website for the first year I was in business. I used LinkedIn as a microsite. So I wanted to make sure that the content on the website was the content people were actually engaging with on LinkedIn first. And I wanted to really make sure that worked. But where I did spend a bit of money in the first instance was, I made sure that we had a 1-pager. So we had a A4 sheet that said who we were, what we did, and had a couple of testimonials on there, just so that it was very easy to see. That was on our LinkedIn channel, that went out on all of our emails. Anybody that worked with me, I said, could you send this out to anybody that might need our services? It was really, quite basic stuff, but actually having that well designed, and I think like the first £300 I ever spent on the business was on a logo. Just making sure that we had a nice logo, and that we'd really thought about what we wanted our brand to look like, and that was really important to me. And then,
what about networking? Because
yeah,
have so many networking groups.
Yeah.
You need to go from networking group to and meeting the same.
Yeah, and the same people keep turning up. Yeah. I've got a whole blog, a whole rant about how not to be a serial networker, for sure. And I think that's another thing that a lot of small business owners and startups do, is you don't recognise how important your time is as a resource, and how expensive your time is actually. I think we underestimate it. And when you're going to networking events, it's not just being there, but it's the travel to get there and back, if it's a face-to-face as it used to be before COVID. It's the networking event itself, and then all the one-to-ones you're expected to do, which is all free time. And somehow we've got into this really bad habit of giving everybody an hour of our time, when actually you can probably get through the information you really need to get through in an email in 20 minutes if you really thought about it.
Yeah.
And actually use that time effectively. So yeah, I think having a networking strategy is really important. Really thinking about, why are you going? So a lot of people just go networking because they're like, well, that's what we need to do. But actually, whatever event I went to, I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to get out of that event. So it was, do I want to speak to a specific person, because I'd already researched to know if they were going or not. So I'd got, I could everything else was a bonus, but I'd made that conversation sort of the target of the meeting. It could be about skill set. So again, guest speakers, if they were really good guest speakers, was I going to get something from that I really needed? It was, it wasn't about collecting as many business cards as possible for me, but it was really about thinking, am I going to this for a lead generation point of view? Am I going to this to talk to that one person about X opportunity? And really thinking about what I wanted to get out of it, and then really measuring that ROI, that return on investment. I could link back then, and still do, understanding where your inquiries are coming from is really important. So I go to a networking group now where no one in that room is my target market, but the amount of referrals I've had from the people in that room is amazing. And that's why I keep going back and giving back to that community, because it's always done me well. And yeah, so I think networking is important, but certainly with COVID, what I've noticed as well is, you can establish rapport and a relationship with people that you've never seen. We're a classic example of that. Yeah, we've only met virtually, but I feel like I know you, so that's really good. And so focusing on how to do like virtual networking well and time efficiently is really important. So I've met people that spend 6 hours a day on LinkedIn, and I don't know how they do that. That is, how do you do that and do a job?
Yeah, how do you do your other work if
so I think having a checklist and having whatever I do, I've always generally got an idea in my head of what I'm doing that for. And I've written loads. I can give you loads of blogs and resources on this. So I've written like, here's what my networking strategy looks like, and how you should, like, why you should not be a serial networker
is over branding. Even if it's a small company, I don't know, selling jam, it's getting that branding out there, isn't it? And getting yourself, choosing your right platforms to use and getting the branding.
Yeah, I mean, with the branding, it can become a bit of a vanity project, and I think it did for us, if I'm honest, because people bought me, and that took me 2.5 years to realise, was people didn't buy into Amari, they bought into me, and then it was just, oh, but it's called Amari, and that's great. With, I think,
a bad thing though.
No, not at all. But I think I wish I'd spent more time in the beginning. It was really silly stuff like having a good profile picture on LinkedIn actually did me a lot more good, and really focusing on making my LinkedIn profile really solid and full of useful information. That did me a lot more good in the long run than having a play with the logo design and colours and stuff like that, because I think it's important. I think it was more for my mindset actually, and me feeling like I was taking this business seriously, and that it had stationery and business cards and things like that. But it was more for my confidence and my exactly that, rather than, I don't think it actually made a difference to my clients.
We hide behind that for a little while, don't we?
Yeah.
I think at the beginning it is really scary.
Yeah.
When I first started, it seemed if I had a business card, then I was real.
Yeah, and a lot of people do feel like that. Yeah, it's tangible, isn't it? Yeah, I can give you something. Absolutely. Yeah, and that is really important. But I think we, you know, for me, what's come out of the last 3 years is it's much more about your messaging, and it's much more about how you communicate what you do and how you do it. That, you know, people will forgive you anything. In terms of, you know, you can have the most amateurish setup in terms of videos, or your graphics might be, you know, just done on Canva in a free graphic software. But if the content is good, people will still engage with it, and it'll still be really powerful. So I think sometimes, and that, I mean, the other thing is branding is obviously so much more than look and feel. And a lot of people forget that. People think it's just fonts and, you know, imagery and, you know, colours and stuff like that, but actually branding is much more about the DNA. So I spend a lot of time now talking to people about, you know, why they've done what they've done, but not in a kind of find your why kind of thing, but it's like, what are you here to change? Like, what are you here to improve, inspire? You know, how are you going to make a difference in this industry? Because if you're a Me Too moment, like if you don't really have that fire, especially as a startup, I mean, you know this as well as I do, like you will work 100 hours, and if you don't have that, you know, that's why 80% of startups fail, is because they just think, oh well, you know, that you've got to have that sense of purpose, I think, to really make a difference, and to get you through the long nights.
I found with my business, it's evolved.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't stayed the same. It keeps moving and changing, and you know, and you've just sort of rolling with it.
Yeah.
How it feels, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a year old now, and I've evolved and changed from where I was at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's almost like finding out who you are. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I cringe at some of the stuff I used to put out 3 years ago. Like I really do. I look at it and go, oh Lord, and we thought that was really good. But yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, for me, the one thing that is just the most powerful tool in like a marketer's arsenal is customer feedback. And from that, you know, we built the marketing moment of truth, the MOT, and that's now one of our best performing packages that we sell to small businesses. And I think that's all. I would never have thought about that had I not had that client feedback. And I think you know, they are sort of they will tell you what you're doing well, they'll tell you what you're not doing well, where you can fix stuff. And yeah, I think having that really close connection and that relationship with people, I think sometimes we get really stressed about being sold to, and everyone hates that kind of, you know, snake oil salesman type, you know, where you feel like you need a shower after you've had a conversation with them because they're that greasy. But actually now I find that it's very much more about building that relationship and almost you're sort of collaborating with them in a way, and that's why you evolve and develop.
At the moment where everyone's helping one another,
yeah.
You know, and sharing skills, what you said earlier.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you're frightened to share your skills. You're thinking, "Oh, I'm giving too much away," but then you realise actually, no, it's working.
Because it's that transparency, and that builds trust, and trust leads to relationships, which eventually leads to money in some form, either, you know, with that person or through that person. They will recommend you to others. And I've always believed in sort of just generosity reciprocates, and you never know how. But at the same time, you know, I have so many people that say to me, like, if you ever need any help on anything, just let me know. And they do mean it, but you have to actually then tell them what it is you want. And that's the bit we often miss, is actually, you know, saying, do you know what, I could really do with your help on X. And yeah, I think that's the important thing. But I like it. I like the fact that we're becoming much more transparent and much more collaborative. And I like the fact that we're not. The other thing that I love doing with Amari is we work out loud. So nothing is ever finished. You know, everything is always in discussion. It's always changing, evolving, developing. And it's not me going. I think sometimes, you know, you can create a product or a service package or something, and you almost do it in your own little house, in your own little moment, and sort of like you make this beautiful thing, and then you take it out to the market and sort of say, you know, you put so much of your soul into it. It sort of becomes this little moment where you're like, you know, here's my soul. Do you like it? Do you want to buy it? and actually, you know, that's it can work, but the better way to work is kind of like, I've got this idea, this is where I am with it, and develop it with your client base, or with the, you know, with your network, with people that you trust. And everything I've ever done with Amari has always been sort of 10 times better than it started because of that. So yeah, I advocate that hugely.
Yeah. If you were choosing a platform of social media, how do you know which one? You know, if you were, because I noticed lots of the networking people I go to, they're all using Facebook, and yet there's a whole generation that have stopped using Facebook now. So Facebook seems to have moved on to the, I don't know, 30s, 40s, older year, my age group, let's say.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from on that. And I think, again, like all of the channels and the you know, they're constantly evolving as well, because their job is to, you know, to keep people on platform. And so, you know, Facebook was great for, you know, Facebook came out when I first started university, so it was great for, you know, for me when I was finding out all about the different events that were on and all the different things I could do. But it was you know, as soon as your parents are on there and suddenly they're seeing all your pictures from uni of you dressed as a Smurf, like you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I want my parents to have this much information about me, or grandparents, as it was in my case. So yeah. I mean, I think in terms of choosing your channel, I wrote a social media survival guide on this sort of stuff a while ago, and it's really about, I think, firstly, you've got to decide, you know, talk to people who fit your profile in terms of the kind of people you want to work with. And no one's going to mind if you like message them on LinkedIn and say, I'm trying to talk to people like you, where'd you go for your information, or however you want to, you know, frame it. And then they'll tell you, you would hope. You know, I only go on Facebook for family, I go on LinkedIn for work, I go on Instagram for, you know, cat videos or whatever it is, for a little bit of light relief. And from that, you can then really focus on the social media channels that are going to be best fit for your target audience. And you know, get them to share it as well is always the really important thing, is get your network to share it, whether they're family, friends, neighbours, whoever. You know, the more people that will share your stuff, the better for you. I think then you've got to think about your resources. So how much time have you genuinely got to spend on those social media platforms? Because as I said, you can spend all day and it becomes such a vacuum. To really think about, you know, how much time you're going to spend on it. Get yourself, so I've got a whole list of questions. You know, who uses the channel? Is it an important channel, or is it a nice to have? Are your competitors on it, and have they established a really good presence? You know, why, thinking actually, does it make sense for our company to use this channel? And then thinking about, you know, what kind of content are you going to put on that channel, and what are your KPIs? Like, what do you want someone to do as a result of being on your channel? Like LinkedIn, for example, keep using the word channel, which is sort of marketing jargon, I was told yesterday. So, you know, like talking about LinkedIn in this instance, you know, what do you want people to do once they've seen your social media content? Is it just about sharing it? Is it about commenting on it? Is it about visiting the website? Is it about, you know, subscribing to a video series or whatever it is? And I think you've just got to be really clear about what you want to get out of that social media presence, if you like. And then the other thing that you need to really be thinking about is, you know, how much budget do you need to create the, you know, the kind of content that works on that channel? So Instagram, for example, you know, your pictures need to be top quality, your graphics need to be good, your GIFs need to be excellent, because that is a very visual platform. Whereas, you know, there are other platforms that are possibly a bit more forgiving. And so you know, and again, it depends on your target audience, I think, as well, for that. And then the other thing that you need to really think about is, you know, is it sustainable? Because for me, it's sustainable for me to spend 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn. And I can do that every day, and I can commit to that. But if it was 15 minutes on that, 15 minutes on Instagram, 15 minutes on Facebook, 15 minutes on Pinterest, 15 minutes on YouTube, 15 minutes on Vimeo, then I've got to write a blog and update my website as well. That's, you know, that's days of time. So you've really got to think about, as I said, you know, your resources, and really think about, the other thing is the kind of content your client actually needs to see. So, you know, a lot of people just chuck stuff out, like blogs that they think people might want to read. But actually, if you're really, when you're talking to people, if you're picking up on the questions that they're asking you, you write content related to that question, because that's the question they've asked. So, you know, if they're asking it, other people are likely to be asking it. So yeah, and with me, you know, one of my marketing principles is I will only write an article on it if I've said that same thing more than 3 times. Right. You know, if I've had that question, whatever that question, because I'm all about the questions, like ask them anything. Well, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I say the same thing more than 3 times, I'll make the time to write a blog on it. Otherwise, I won't, because I'm not going to sit there and go, oh shit, I haven't written a blog this week. Sorry for swearing. Apologies. But yeah, I'm not going to think, oh dear, I haven't written a blog this week. What am I going to write a blog about? You know, you only create content when it's needed. Okay. And if it serves a purpose, and if it, you know, moves the conversation forward, or provides a summary of a complicated thing, or whatever it is. And a lot of people miss that. We're just like, content, what am I putting on Facebook today?
So I've got to
and it's and it's really about taking a step back on that.
Get a bit bored by it, can't you? You sort of scroll past.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I scrolled past.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's, you know, I always say you've got to think about what the message is, you know, what you're trying to achieve, what the message is, then think about where you're going to put it and in what format you're going to put it in. So does it make sense to do that as a video? Is it better as an infographic? Is it better as a, you know, a GIF? So working with a client at the moment where you can do a lovely before and after situation. So that's really nice as a GIF. It works really well because it's sort of the, you know, the old stars in the eyes, Matthew Kelly moment. Yeah. But if you're talking about, you know, a convoluted supply chain process, or, you know, like even a sales process that you work through, that's going to probably be better as an infographic and things like that. So really thinking about what you want to say and then how you want to say it is important.
And what about mentors? Having a mentor, do you think they're valuable?
I think having the ability to bounce ideas off people that you trust is always really important.
And not your family, because your family don't always. My family are like my biggest fans.
Yeah, so they're not going to give it to you straight. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have mentors, but I have what I call my panel of honest advisors, which is kind of the same, because I think mentoring can get a bit. It's sort of lost its way. It's become part of sort of, you know, the corporate landscape, and so we've actually, you know, mentoring in its classical sense was a friend that walked by you and gave you the, you know, the honest truth, if you look back to the classics. And then I think also with mentoring, you know, having been a mentor for a lot of people over the years, it's about reminding them that it's actually it's a two-way relationship. Whereas sometimes you go into a mentoring relationship and they're like, just tell me what to do then, and you're like, that's not quite how this works actually. So I think if you're going to have a mentoring relationship, whether you need to formalize that, I don't know, but as I said, like before I do anything, or before when I'm in that really early concept stage, I will just run it by sort of 5 people that, you know, their opinion is the most important thing to me, I suppose. And yeah, none of them are my family either. So yeah.
And you said you started without a website.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think it is to spend money on getting your website? Because I've heard it said your website is your shop window, you know, that's where you. So how important is the website?
So I didn't have a website because I didn't have the time to spend on it, because it is, you know, it does take a lot of time to get it set up and in the right way and managed effectively. So it is an outlay. which, as I said, because Amari started before I did, I was too busy working, and I was like, well, I'm getting website is a marketing tool. It's only useful if it's getting you inquiries. And at the time, I couldn't deal with any more inquiries than I had. So for me, it wasn't a useful tool to spend time and money on. But I think, the way I describe it is, it is a shop window, but it's also, it should be a resource center. So it's, my website is, I think I'm the person that goes on it most, because it's where I put all the resources that I use with clients all the time. So I'll be in a meeting, I'll be like, oh, I've got a blog on this, hold on, let me bring it up, I can send it to you. It's there, it's almost like a personal Dropbox as opposed to a sales site. But I think it is important to have. I mean, the only reason we actually, I think it did me a disservice in the first sort of 18 months not having one, because, I had clients who said, I really want to recommend you to other people in my network, but that you don't have a website. Like, where do I send them, to find out more about you, to see if you'd be a good fit. And, saying, oh, well, I've got a load of stuff on my LinkedIn, if that's any good, wasn't quite cutting it anymore. Because of the, the types of clients I was working with as well. You were sort of working with European marketing managers of firms, and you're like, what am I doing? Like, and I think again, when we actually spent the time on the website, it made us really think about how we were communicating, what we were communicating, what information needed to be on there, what we wanted people to feel when they hit the site. It really made us think about that customer experience a whole lot more than we had been probably till then. So it is important, but I think you can also over-reg it in the first instance and spend a lot of money you don't need. So again, we've got so I've just put together a branded package, we've called it, and that includes everything you need from zero to hero to get you off and going in 7 days. And it includes a website, but it's a very basic website. It's like about what you do, blogs and resources, contact page, and that's pretty much it. Because actually what you realise is people don't need an awful lot of information to make a decision, as long as the relevant information is actually there. So it's just about making sure it's very clear who you are, what you do, how you make a difference, and some form of way of contacting you. That's all you need on the website to start. And then as you develop, you build your portfolio, you build your testimonials, your case studies, and all that gorgeous social proofing that really helps the website then take off for you and become its own marketing tool in its own right. But don't build it and then leave it. You have to be reviewing it, you have to be adding to it. It's a dynamic tool. Don't just make it and then leave it there and hope it does something for you and then complain when it doesn't give you any leads.
Yeah, I totally agree. Anyway, it's been lovely chatting to you.
I'll chat all day, you know me, Jill.
It's are on LinkedIn, aren't there? If anyone wants to your blogs, and they're on your website too. You've got quite a lot of resources.
I've worked out loud for 3 years now, so as soon as I find something that's useful or worked for me, I make sure it's available to everyone else, because the one thing you've got as a startup is time. So if you want to educate yourself and learn, then my job really is to help you get there faster, because then you'll grow and then you'll get in touch with me and I can help you. It's kind of the way I think about it. So
good, actually. I hadn't thought
that. And I want to be the person I needed 3 years ago when I started the business. I want to make sure that people make different mistakes to the ones I made and learn different things, and then they share and we all pay it forward. And that's how we're going to rebuild the economy. I think the small business community is an absolute staple. So if what I can do to help is kind of my way of giving back a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, there's so much to go through. It's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for all of that. And
no worries.
Hopefully catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, bye.